Honorable Senators, I hereby report to the Senate that the petition has been submitted to the Senate by Mr. Taratisio Ireri Kawe concerning an amendment to the Constitution of Kenya and other relevant laws on the election of the Deputy President and Deputy County Governor. 2, as you are aware, under Article 119, Sub-Article 1 of the Constitution, and I quote, every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation. 3, Honorable Senators, the silent issues raised in this petition are A, that Article 136.1 and Article 137.1 of the Constitution provides for the mechanism by which the President is elected. Further, Article 148.1 and 149.1 of the Constitution provides for the mechanism by which the Deputy President is nominated and the mechanism by which the said position is filled in the event there is a vacancy, respectively. B, that Article 180 of the Constitution provides for the mechanism by which a county governor and deputy county governor are elected. Further, Article 182 of the Constitution provides for the mechanism through which the position of a county governor is filled should a vacancy arise. C, that the aforementioned provisions of the Constitution on nomination of Deputy President and filling of the vacancy in the office of the county governor by the Deputy Governor and subsequent nomination of the Deputy Governor by the new governor give rise to a situation where the positions are taken up by the non-elected and, in some cases, unpopular leaders. D, that there is need to amend the Constitution and other relevant laws to allow for a democratic process where citizens are given an opportunity to elect office holders in the positions of the Deputy President and Deputy Governor in order to protect the citizens of Kenya from being led by the non-elected and unpopular leaders. E, that provisions to be made in the Constitution stating that the office of the Deputy President fall vacant, a Cabinet Secretary under the National Government acts as the Deputy President for a period of 6 months to give time to a substantive Deputy President to be elected. And F, that should a vacancy arise in the office of the County Governor, the County Secretary acts as a Deputy Governor for a period of 6 months until a substantive Deputy Governor is elected. The petitioner therefore prays that the Senate intervenes in this matter and introduces amendments to the Constitution and other relevant laws to provide for a mechanism in which the office of the Deputy President and that of the Deputy Governor are directly elected into office. 2, a by-election in the office of the Deputy President after assumption to the office of President by an elected Deputy President. 3, a by-election in the office of the Deputy Governor after assumption to the office of County Governor by an elected Deputy Governor. 4, a mechanism by which the President has the power to appoint a Cabinet Secretary in an acting capacity to office of the Deputy President in event of a vacancy for a period of 6 months until a substantive Deputy President is elected. And 5, a mechanism by which the County Governor has the power to appoint the County Secretary in an acting capacity to the office of Deputy Governor in the event of a vacancy for a period of 6 months until a substantive Deputy Governor is elected. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 231, I shall now allow comments and observation on clarifications in relation to the petition for not more than 30 minutes. Honorable Senators, as you've noted, we're at the beginning of the petition. I did not read the title. This petition is to the Senate by Mr. Taratisio Ireri Kawe concerning amendments to the Constitution of Kenya and other relevant laws on the election of the Deputy President and the Deputy Governor. Senator Cheriot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an interesting one. You know, last time, Mr. Speaker, there used to be petitions by a very interesting gentleman. I think he was called Mr. Gesami. Once every 2 weeks, he'd send such petitions before the Senate. I think Senator Moses Kajwang will recall. And I think the last one before the Senate decided to vet his petitions more before being brought to the House was one where he had sought to have marijuana legalized in the country. And it was an interesting afternoon because one of the presidential candidates, I wish Senator Omogeni was here, because his predecessor stood in great defense of that petition. And this has reminded me of one similar petition, Mr. Speaker. Not that it doesn't merit, but it presents issues which, first of all, the petitioner assumes can be addressed by way of election, but also seeks our advice, because petitions by their very nature don't come with the resolutions. The Senate comes and resolves a particular matter, either advice and says, this is the right procedure to follow if you want to handle a particular matter. This is one such petition. But not to deny him, this gentleman, his right to petition this House, Mr. Speaker, he actually raises very valid concerns about the existence of these offices of deputies, both at both levels of government. That is a deputy president for the national government and deputy governors for the county governments, Mr. Speaker. The truth of the matter is that if you're a keen follower of the happenings in our country, then you'd notice that actually, indeed, we do have a problem. It is not only at the national level that the relationship is dysfunctional, and that is much of this second term of their reign. But if you go to the county level, many of the deputy governors will tell you, and you remember there have been even petitions before this House on reports, things that governors have done, either they have withdrawn all allocations to the office of their deputy governors. Some even don't have, secretaries, security, official vehicles. They are denied fuel. You know, there were so many instances littered across the country of people who are elected together as a pair, but when they get to office, things happen. Therefore, I think the constitutional architecture of these deputies, Mr. Speaker, assumed that many will rise to the call of leadership and be civil, be decent. Once you're elected with someone, you may not necessarily have to read from the same script on almost everything. And examples abound world over where people have been elected. We borrowed this kind of system from the United States, where you have a president and a vice president, a governor and a lieutenant governor. And on many occasions, they may agree, but there may be instances where a particular issue is dear to the people that somebody represents on a particular ticket, because these tickets are built across a coalition. You know, you pick a deputy, say, to represent a certain minority, depending on the geographic placing of a county, or sometimes even based on other considerations. If there are more than one dominant tribe in a particular county, therefore you'll pick your deputy from that region. And it's not unusual to find yourself where, as a governor, how you see a particular issue, that is not necessarily the views of your deputy governor. It's not cast in stone that you must agree with your boss or the person that you're working with. Yet the Constitution doesn't provide the avenue of how such disagreements are handled in a proper manner, where I have seen, and this is has generated lots of debate across our country, mostly, of course, because of the political interest that will exist of the current relationship between our president and his deputy, where scholars have tried to explain, many followers of a political space, about what happens in such a situation. You know, is it a must when you're elected with somebody? Must you agree with them on absolutely everything, even the things that you know very well that when you went out to seek the mandate from the people, those are not the promises that you made? Is it a must that when he takes a particular direction? I hold a contrary view to those who believe that this is the particular way. And there are many examples with which you can cite. Of course, the most recent one being between President Donald Trump and his deputy, Vice President Mike Pence, when Donald Trump trying to get him, you know, during the confirmation of votes from the various states to sort of subvert the will of the people. He wrote a very polite letter to his boss and said, unfortunately, my conscience wouldn't allow me to do this. These are such instances, and there are so many other examples. Unfortunately, in our current situation, and this is part of the reason why people are beginning to send such petitions to this House, there is need perhaps to classify what will be the responsibilities of a deputy governor in a particular jurisdiction or a particular county. Are they, once you are elected together as a pair, if the governor chooses, for example, to completely ignore you, not listen to your ideas, do not assign you any particular functions, what remedy can we provide in law? It's not something quite easy, because as you take up to be one's deputy, it is based most of the time on mutual trust that the person, once you get to office, you shall run and govern together, you know, enjoy that the things that you, the promises that you made, ensure that you assist each other to particularly achieve them. Yet, on most occasions, I can bet if we did a survey today, out of the 47 county governments that we have in this country, we'll be lucky to find more than 7 or even more than 5 pair who still work and refer to each other and work together. Most of them, they no longer see eye to eye. They'll tell you the last time they spoke was probably during their inauguration. And since that time, no reference has been made to them. Some actually who are still working together is because perhaps the deputy has chosen for the comfort of their salary and not them not to lose their official car, just to be continued to be referred to as deputy governors. They have chosen the peace and the path of just laying low like an envelope, as is often said. Yet, in reality, they are not actually living up to the dictates of our Constitution. It's a challenge, and I do not know which committee you will refer this petition to. Perhaps maybe Justice and Legal Affairs. In your own discretion, Mr. Speaker, you'll determine which particular committee to refer this petition to. But their findings will be quite interesting, because it will be good for us, having reflected on 2 terms of a president and his deputy, though the same team, and 2 terms of various county governments, and seeing these challenges that arise. It will be important for them to provide an avenue, or perhaps suggestion. If they consider that there is need for a constitutional amendment, there's no problem. I believe if there is goodwill, we can raise the 45 senators that are needed and pass any of these amendments for responsibilities and duties in the office of a deputy president and that of a deputy governor, as I think that most likely seems to be the desire and the direction that this petitioner wants. Of course, he also wants us to provide an avenue for replacing those particular people, because even today, as things stands, through the County Governments Act, at least we've made it possible for governors to be able to nominate their deputies. But you remember the Nairobi County Government situation where Governor Sonko stayed for more than 2 years, I think close to 3 years, without a deputy. There was a lacuna in law. There's nothing we could do, at least thanks to the amendment that we passed in this House, and our colleagues in the lower house agreed with us. This problem is no longer with the deputy governors. But this, at the national government, if there was to be a vacancy in that particular office, either now or in the future, there is no proper provided mechanism for doing it. And that's the other challenge that he thinks we need to provide, either by way of election or a nomination. Let it be clear so that we don't leave it to people's imagination. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to hearing what will be the thoughts of our colleagues who serve in that particular committee on this particular issue. Is it possible to give responsibilities that are as per the dictates of our Constitution, or either an amendment to the County Government Act, so that at least we ensure those who serve as deputy governors, because that will be of much interest to this House, being the first House and the father of devolution, or even at the national level, such that it will no longer be business as usual, because indeed there is a problem, and we must concur that there is need. Many people don't agree on how to solve it, but at least the opinion is unanimous that indeed there is a challenge, and the overall drafting of those particular two clauses of a constitution were not quite as elaborate as they should have been. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Otieno Kajong.
Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate Mr. Kawe, who is a petitioner, on this petition, which is within his constitutional right. And I think what we cannot delve into are the merits or demerits of that petition. The petitioner has asked Senate to consider making certain constitutional amendments to give effect to some of the prayers that he has put in that petition. And Mr. Speaker, the Building Bridges initiative has been a very useful debate to this country, because when it comes to jurisprudence and our collective understanding of the process of constitutional amendment, the effort that the courts have made, the High Court and the Court of Appeal, have enriched our understanding of how to secure and how to safeguard a constitution. And Mr. Speaker, whether you supported the Building Bridges initiative or not, one cannot fault the courts of law for some of the pronouncements they made. We might not agree 100%, but I do believe that they've enriched not just the Kenyan experience, but the global experience when it comes to amending the Constitution. The petitioner could have decided to invoke the provisions of the Constitution, which allows a member of the public, through popular initiative, to propose amendments to that Constitution. And I want to remind the petitioner that despite the response he's going to get from the Senate, he still retains that right if he feels passionately about it, and if Senate does not initiate the necessary amendments that he has put in his prayers, he can still pursue the option that is available to him in the Constitution. But as one legal scholar said, that the problem in Kenya is constitutions without constitutionalism. And so many a times, we want to tailor our Constitution with individuals in mind. Sometimes you find that you don't like the deputy president, and so you want to change the Constitution to make life uncomfortable for the deputy president, not knowing that tomorrow the person you like could be the deputy president. And then you'll find yourself in a bind because you had created hell of that position. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to encourage that even as we think about the constitutional amendments that are good for this country, let us not have individuals in mind. Let us have posterity in mind. If you are to ask me, Mr. Speaker, what do we need to do around the offices of the deputy president and the deputy governors in counties? Number one, just like in the United States of America, the deputy president should not be an idler, like is the case today. Mr. Speaker, Kamala Harris presides over the Senate. What stops the deputy president from becoming the leader of government business in Parliament? Because as it is now, Senator Pogisio, distinguished Senator Pogisio, is a leader of majority in this House, and perhaps he only sees the president on television. So how is he going to convey the wishes and the ambitions of the executive if there is that disconnect?
What's it, Senator Charagay?
Mr. Speaker, my brother was making, Senator Kajwang was making very brilliant and weighty issues, and I was following keenly. But could you confirm to the country that he is aware that the majority leader, the great Senator of West Pokot, Samuel Pogisho, sees President Uhuru on television, yet he is the majority leader, and the party leader of Jubilee is Uhuru Kenyatta? Does he have any information than Moaz, or is it because Raila Odinga is the brother of Uhuru, and maybe he has been discussing with Baba? Can he clarify to the House? It should not go on record. Many people will get worried, Mr. Speaker, if they can imagine that the majority leader sees his party leader and the president of the Republic in television only. Maybe Senator Kajwang should clarify whether he knows more or not. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I wonder where Raila Odinga's name came from, because there are some people who, when they sleep, they dream, they wake up, they're just seeing Raila Odinga. Just get used that in his fifth attempt, he might be the fifth. And so he might be the one dealing with majority leaders in this House. Mr. Speaker, I use the word perhaps, and definitely the president has been in Ethiopia, I could be going to the United States, and many of us who are in the deep state, like Linturi and Cheriot, I've obviously not seen the president since we went to Ethiopia and since we went to the United States. But what I'm trying to suggest here is that we need to bridge that gap between the leadership in this house and the presidency. Because people come here purporting to talk for the executive, and perhaps, again I'm saying perhaps, they have no relationship, they have no link with the presidency. People come to this house saying that the president has said that this is a president's position, this is a party position, and perhaps, I'm using the word perhaps, they have not seen that president for 6 months. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, if you had the deputy president as a leader of government business, the same way the vice president used to be the official leader of government business in the House, you are going to make that deputy president more active, he will be more engaged, he will be more relevant, he will be driving the legislative agenda of the executive. And don't tell me that we have a presidential system that is impossible. The United States has a presidential system, and yet the deputy president or the vice president, Kamala, sits in the Senate. I think those are the kind of innovations that we should be thinking about. We should not be stuck in some box thinking that we have a situation, there is a model of government that was invented somewhere that can only be implemented here on cut and paste. We should come up with the best inventions for our republic. And Mr. Speaker, I can tell you that in the next elections, the President of the Republic of Kenya will definitely have to choose a strong individual that complements him, complements his age, complements his skills, complements his temperament, and complements his vote base. Mr. Speaker, that person cannot be kept in an office somewhere just waiting for deployment. Those are things that happened with Daniel Arap Moi. We need to look at the content of the office of the Deputy President and the content of the office of Deputy Governor. Those are some of the greatest idlers in this republic. Mr. Speaker, many deputy governors are wallowing into alcoholism and depression because they have nothing to do, because the governors are giving them no assignment. Can we find an interface through which the deputy governors can also not just be members of the county executive committee with a definite docket, but also to have some interface with the county assembly? Mr. Speaker, those are some of the thoughts that I hope that this committee that will look into this petition might think through and broaden as it responds to the petitioner. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I do believe that this House, this Senate, if you are going to change the Constitution, this Senate should benefit from the experiences of people who have served this nation. For example, President Uhuru Kenyatta is nearing his term. After that, what does he do? Do you want him to be out there dealing with the Scotchmen and Irishmen and other substances with two names? Mr. Speaker, we need to engage the president creatively and properly. What if a former president became a member of the Senate for life, as it happens in other countries? I think it's Burundi or Rwanda, one of the countries in Africa. What about the Auditor General? We had an excellent Auditor General, Mr. Speaker, Eddie Uko. After the end of his tenure, he is now just playing golf. He has not gotten any government employment. You can imagine how many government secrets he has. That person could come to this House as a honorary senator, and he would really add value to our audit initiatives. A retired Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, all these constitutional officers with security of tenure, they should be ending up in the Senate for the remainder of the life of that Senate. The Chief Justice. Today we would benefit by having Justice Maraga sitting in this Senate in a honorary and advisory capacity. I hope that if you are going to have a BBI version 2, these are some of the ideas that we are going to inject into that so that we can strengthen the Senate, we can strengthen the linkages between the executive and the legislature. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to congratulate the petitioner for bringing this issue before the Senate. I think when I sat there, Speaker, as you read this petition is very interesting. I want to agree with my colleagues, many of them, in what they have said. These are very unique petition that intends, because when you look the reading of Article 148, election and swearing in of the Deputy President, for example, it is mandatory that anybody who wants to become the President of the Republic, Mr. Speaker, is to nominate And in fact, when you are doing swearing in of the president and deputy, it is done. And that is why it's called the presidency. But looking at the design and the way this constitution, the architecture and design, trying to look at Article 152, the provisions of Article 144 and 145 in the election of the president and the deputy president, it says relating to the removal of the president shall apply with the necessary modification to the removal of the deputy president. But it is silent on what happens. So I think when you look at the reading and the design of this constitution, they did not envisage that a deputy president and a president shall be in office, and they don't see eye to eye, Mr. Speaker, as it is happening at the moment, Mr. Speaker. So when you look at the country, the presumption and the substance and the spirit of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker, was that these people will be like a couple, will be like people who will live together and agree on everything. The Constitution did not envisage the crisis that the difference between the president and the deputy president can create to the country. And the fact that goes further, that in the absence of the deputy president, that president who assumes to be the president, then they nominate a senior-most cabinet secretary. And of course, at the moment in the arrangement, and we have seen, and thank God, I think in observation, Mr. Speaker, courts the other day declared these executive orders by President Uhuru Kenyatta as null and void. And you remember in one of the executive order number 1 of 2018, the president didn't appoint one of the cabinet ministers as the coordinator of the government functions. So we should, this idea is good. And I agree with what Senator Kajwang has said brilliantly. But it looks this guy should have been more useful during BBI, because this thing we should have worked more there. But looking at the arrangement that we have at the moment, Mr. Speaker, the president and the deputy president, it is in public domain, they don't see eye to eye. You have even this thing has taken spiritual angle. You can see the bishops and the religious leaders are now trying to bring the president and the deputy president together. So I think in as much as that's a good avenue where spiritual leaders want to bring the deputy and the president together on board, we should look into the future on how we can redesign the architecture and the design of this constitution so that we can look at a way of ensuring that when a deputy president and a president are in office, if it reaches a point where the deputy and the president don't see eye to eye, of course there are mechanisms of removing the deputy president as envisaged by the constitution, like resigning, maybe dies or incapacity in office. But what should happen in a situation where the president, God forbid, is incapacitated or resigns or is impeached by this House? So we should be looking at the constitutional amendment, but unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, and we have seen, since the second term of Jubilee, you have seen and everybody knows that the president and deputy president, because the president has decided, in fact, the president Uhuru Kenyatta has technically appointed another deputy president by the name CS Fred Matiang'i through executive order of 2018. So technically speaking, and in terms of operation of the government, we don't want where a president is bypassing the deputy president, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look at Article 255...
Oh, is it Senator Kasanga?
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the Senator of Nandi to just clarify, in case I might have heard him wrong, because Article 148(7) does provide that the deputy president may resign from office at any time by notice, in writing, addressed to the president, and the resignation shall take effect on the date and the time specified by the notice, if any, and it goes on. And I'm just wondering, because he said that there is no provision in case the deputy president and the president are not seeing eye to eye, but I see that provision here in the Constitution. So maybe you can clarify that.
What is it, Senator Dulo?
Mr. Speaker, is Senator Cherargei in order to lie to the country and this House that the President has appointed his deputy in the name of one CS Matiang'i? I thank you.
Senator Cheriot, on a point of order.
Mr. Speaker, even if you want to hold brief for cabinet ministers in this house, there's a way people can do it in a more intelligent way. First of all, it is wrong to allege that a colleague has lied. That word is unparliamentary, and the deputy minority leader must withdraw and apologize to Senator Cherargei. If she doesn't, Mr. Speaker, you know what needs to follow. But second and most importantly is that please stop the deputy majority leader from heckling in the House, Mr. Speaker. It's not right. When she spoke, I was quiet. So
Proceed, Senator.
She should allow me to make my point peacefully.
Proceed.
The point raised by our colleague, Senator Sylvia Kasanga, Mr. Speaker, last week or the week before, seated on that chair, Speaker Lusaka gave a ruling on what amounts to a point of order. That if you feel that in the course of making their contributions or submissions, a particular member has run afoul of the provisions of a standing order, you first point out which particular standing order they have violated. I do not think there is a way in which Senator Sylvia Kasanga can accuse Senator Cherargei of having run afoul of any particular standing order, because the provisions she's pointing out to Senator Cherargei is a point of debate, because it's just one of the provisions through which somebody can leave office. So that's, if she feels that an avenue that needs to be exploited, I believe she's now a very well-versed legislator in this House, having her 4th year. She knows that she can make her request to speak, and during her contributions, then she can provide that avenue. But it's unfair to interrupt a colleague with frivolous points of orders that do not amount to points of order, Mr. Speaker.
What is it, Senator Kajwang?
Mr. Speaker, there is a standing order, there's a rule on imputing improper motives on fellow members. And you notice that Senator Cheriot himself did not cite the standing order under which he rose. He attempted to usurp the duty of the chair, of the speaker, to determine whether Senator Kasanga was right or not. And he went ahead, Mr. Speaker, to impute improper motives on Senator Kasanga and Senator Fatuma Dulo. Mr. Speaker, this reminds me of Chinua Achebe when he said, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. The level of indiscipline, the level of... Senator Cheriot is supposed to be listening to the deputy majority leader, none other than Senator Dulo. How can he impute improper motives that Senator Dulo is holding brief for a cabinet secretary when not too long ago, Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, Senator Cheriot and Senator Cherargei were roasting me for implying that Senator Cherargei was holding brief for CS Keter. Mr. Speaker, is it in order for Senator Cheriot to impute improper motive on the part of distinguished senators in this House?
Order, senators, we have to proceed. Rules are clear, honorable senators. If you stand on any point of order, you point out the standing order.
Mr. Speaker, allow me, and I would advise my colleague
Proceed,
to
Senator
be listening
Cherargei.
to my submissions, because I was just bringing the reality of what is happening, and this is a matter in public domain. There is Executive Order number 1 of 2018, and we should understand what the English means. I say technically, because as we talk, the arrangement that we already had, and I've said President Uhuru technically has appointed this deputy president outside the elected deputy president by the people of this republic. And therefore, I was just bringing the reality of what Kenya is undergoing through vis-a-vis the vision and the architect and design of the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. And that is why I'm saying this debate is very healthy. What this petition has brought has brought us to reality of what is happening. We cannot rely on the spiritual leaders. Every time a deputy president and a president differ, we run to the religious leaders. Every time a governor and deputy governor differ, we go to the wazee or elders, Mr. Speaker. Elders have more responsibilities than listening to political differences between a governor and deputy governor, Mr. Speaker. So this debate we are having is very healthy. And I want to advise my colleagues that it is known, it is in the public domain, that the President of Kenya and the Deputy President of Republic of Kenya don't see eye to eye, and it is in the public domain. So, and I think, Mr. Speaker, you need to protect me from majority leader. when she was talking, I was listening religiously like a good schoolboy. But when I'm talking, because I'm taking the point home, but not going to Rome, she's uncomfortable. But I want to say that, Mr. Speaker, and also on the issue of Article 255, because the only thing, as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the amendment of this Constitution, I've seen he has alluded to Article 255. It is very clear that one of the things that should go to popular initiative, because under the Constitution, there is either parliamentary initiative and there is the popular initiative. One of the Article 255, 1F, talks about the term of the office of the president as one of the two Article 257 on popular initiative. So now the question should be, what should happen? Should we do a referendum with an election? I have heard Senator Kajwang, and I pray to God that Senator Kajwang can be around and be in opposition to ensure they bring BBI number 2 in 2023, so that we can see if we can go to the next BBI 2 and be able to amend this part through popular initiative or referendum, and be able now to review these issues that have been brought forward, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even looking at deputy governors, and I agree with my colleagues, Mr. Speaker, most of the deputy governors do not have offices. Their vehicles have been withdrawn. Mr. Speaker, I agree that we must be innovative. And you remember when he passed the law in assumption of office, where we had given power to the speaker, to the governor to nominate deputy governor with approval, and it is good the MCAs of Nandi are here, with the approval of the county assemblies. So, Mr. Speaker, we should also go further. We don't want to be prescriptive. We don't want to say deputy governor should do this. I know a number of deputy governors and governors who don't see eye to eye because of their own political differences, because of the ambitions of the deputy governors that we have in the country. But this is a very interesting, and I hope the Committee of Justice, Legal Affairs, or Widget Rufa, and I know my sister here, our leader, deputy majority leader, Dr. Senator Dulo, will be able to tell us how do we proceed. We are looking at the legal conundrum that is here, Mr. Speaker. So we need to agree going into the future that, that this petition is very critical. The Senate must pronounce himself and show the direction that show. Otherwise, I congratulate the petitioner and thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. And I want to call my colleague who did not understand my submission to look for me in camera. We have a cup of tea, then I can explain in detail.
Order, honorable senators. Order, honorable senators. Honorable senators, we have to proceed. Honorable senators, Standing Order 232-1 requires every petition to be committed to the relevant standing committee for its consideration in this case, I direct the petition be committed to the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs, and Human Rights. In terms of Standing Order 232-2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate I thank you.